Hi, I'm Rita. Welcome back to my booktube channel, Life Worth Reading. Today, I'll be doing my first wrap-up for 2021. I am so excited about this. January was a great reading month for me and a great way to start out this reading year. And I'm so excited to tell you about all the books that I read last month. Before I get to that though, I just want to let you know that you should definitely watch my new TBR videos, which is Tara Picks My TBR. Because at least you'll be a little caught up as to what I read in the month. The February one is already up. I'm gonna link it in the cards and down below, and you should just definitely watch it if you're curious as to what I'll be reading in February. So to actually start with this wrap up, I read 6 books in January. I know that's still not a lot to a lot of people, but it's a great number for me. So I'm really happy about that, and let's just get into describing these 6 books and how I feel about them. The first book that I read in 2021 and my only physical read for the month was The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa. I gave this book 4 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I already really enjoyed Yoko Ogawa's writing. She has really mastered the speculative fiction, dreamlike qualities to her stories, and so this was just a really beautiful and haunting and just a beautiful story. Like, you could really, it was kind of like a fever dream. Like, you are living through someone's imagination. You're not sure what's real, what's not, and it is a beautiful story. This book follows the life of a small Japanese island where objects often go missing. Basically, these people in this island wake up one day, some days, not every day, but these people wake up and realize that ribbons are missing, for example, and they have to make sure that ribbons are eliminated throughout the island. Like, they have to burn them, they have to eliminate them, and since their memories associated with that object is already gone, it doesn't really bother them to be eliminating a certain object, you know, because they no longer have certain memories or a certain nostalgia attached to these items, and so they get rid of the things that are meant to be disappearing. And controlling all of these disappearances and the citizen memories is the Memory Police, which is basically a brutal police force that ensures that everyone on this island has forgotten these objects and these objects no longer remain on the island. We follow our main character, which is an author, and this is written in the back, by the way, this is not a spoiler, and she realizes that her editor, a friend of hers, does not forget these memories. So he's one of the rare people on the island that still have all of the memories attached, and this is very dangerous because it is very much forbidden, and so she has to help him and hide him from the Memory Police because she knows that the Memory Police either kills or at least takes these people away to figure out why they still have memories when others don't. And so it is very dangerous to be one of these people that does remember on this island, and so she tries to help him, like, hide him from the Memory Police. I actually just don't really know what to say about this book because I really truly loved it. It is quite short, it is quite haunting, and it also has a novel within a novel, which I always enjoy. I will say though, if you are one of those people that does not like open endings or not getting a lot of answers, you may not enjoy this because we really just don't get the answers that we were hoping for as to what is actually happening in the island or why this is happening. So if you're one of those people, I might recommend that you don't read this, but if you're one of those people that doesn't mind not getting a lot of answers, I definitely recommend this. It is very beautiful, and I don't know, I really enjoyed it. And yeah, this ending made me cry. It made me cry. So first read of 2021 was a total success, 4 stars. The next book that I read in January was The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. I listened to the audiobook for this. I read it because in my Tara Picks My TBR game, I had to read someone else's recommendation, and I picked Noelle Gallagher because we all love her. I mean, there's just no other way around it. So I picked her recommendation. She really loves this book. And you know what? I had to give it a try. I had to see what the fuss is all about. Basically, I gave this book 3.5 stars. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't that great, if I'm being totally honest. This romance follows Lucy and Josh, which are kind of co-workers but sort of rivals at this publishing house, and basically they hate each other, except that they really don't. I love an enemies to lovers trope, do not get me wrong, but the hate to love in this book is so mild. Does anyone else agree with me? Am I the weird one? Because I don't like bully romances. That's really not the vibe that I'm going for. but I like it when you see an actual rivalry. In this book, it's kind of like we're in Lucy and I think, oh my god, do we follow both of their POVs? I'm not sure. But at least in Lucy's head, she's like sitting at her desk and she's like, I hate Josh. He's so hot though, but I hate him. But I have wet dreams about him. But I hate him. But he's totally hot. And I'm just like, sis, you really truly do not hate this man. You want to get in his pants, and that's totally okay. But like, the hate to love in this book is so mild. And I was so surprised because, you know what? I don't know if this counts as a spoiler. I mean, it's a romance. You already know it's gonna happen. But like, they start making out at like 20% of the book. I swear to God. It is like 20% of the book. They're like, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. And they're just like making out in the elevator. And I'm just so confused. I mean, it was clear that they were attracted to each other. I don't know. I just wish we had a little more depth in that sort of dislike and in that rivalry. We soon find out that they're like competing for a job opening in the same company. And so, you know, I also thought that was resolved way too fast. Like that starts building up and you have like this rivalry between them and they have to like come up with a big presentation. And then at the end, it is just like resolved like that. And I'm like, why did this take over half of the book if it was just gonna dissolve that fast? I don't know. This is like my thoughts on this book are definitely not organized, and you can probably tell watching this. I'm just like remembering things and talking about them. But I don't know. Their like reason that they hate each other is so stupid. Basically, Lucy on her first day at this job smiles at Josh. Josh does not smile back, and so they are enemies for life. What kind of third grade rivalry is this? You know? Listen, I liked it. I'm gonna be straight up, I did not dislike it, but it was just certain things about it that, like the ones that I'm mentioning, that got me like, why do people call this an enemies to lover? This is like attracted to lovers. And speaking of lovers, the actual sex scene that we got, the steamy scene, really? Like I listened to, I waited till 90% of this book to have a steamy scene, and that's what we were served. That's what I have to say. You're probably thinking that I'm raunchy as hell, but I just don't think that scene was worthy of the buildup. You know, it was not worthy of the buildup. And you know what? If you have read this book, the paintball scene, too fucking long. It is too fucking long. It is what it is. It is what it is. So, the hating game, it should be called the liking game, and that's all I'd have to say. I give it 3.5 stars. I had a good time, but don't tell me this is enemies to lovers, because it's not. The next book that I read was the book that I think I have the most thoughts on, and they're not all good. And that is A Torch Against the Night by Sabaa Tahir. I hate to say this because I really enjoyed An Ember in the Ashes, but I didn't like this book. Am I the only one that really didn't like the sequel? Because I really haven't seen that many people saying that they didn't like it, and so I feel like I'm just literally the only negative person out here. But I didn't like it. I didn't like it. I've never actually spoken a lot about An Ember in the Ashes in my videos, but the one thing that I didn't like about An Ember in the Ashes was like Leia. I'm just gonna Leia's point of view. I thought that sometimes it was very repetitive and it was kind of exhausting just being in her head because of how much she talked about Dareen, her brother. And if you don't know, An Ember in the Ashes, basically it follows a Roman but Middle Eastern also inspired world where there are these marshals, there are these brutal like armies and scholars, which are basically just slaves. And Leia is a scholar, and Elias, our other POV that I love him, is a marshal. And basically, Leia's brother, like in the first 2 pages of The Ember in the Ashes, is taken away by marshals. Her whole family is killed because they believe that he is working for the Resistance, which is like pretty much a bunch of scholars that are trying to defy and overthrow the marshals. So the whole first book is Leia trying to find her brother since he's like the only member of her family left. And so she asks for help from the Resistance since both of her parents that had been long gone by then were also like leaders of the Resistance. And so she asks them for help, and she has to go into Blackleaf Blackcliff Academy, which is the marshals where they're trained, and be a spy for the resistance in order to get information about where her brother is. And so it was really exhausting being in her head. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, it was so repetitive. It was like, I get it. Like, literally every sentence that she did, she was like, I'm doing this for Darren. I'm doing this for Darren. I can't wait to see Darren. What is Darren doing? Is Darren okay? None of my suffering is worth it if it's not for Darren. If I'm suffering, that's okay because Darren is suffering more. And I'm just like, let's move on, shall we? Give me something else. And it wasn't that Leia's character wasn't interesting, but it was just like so exhaustive being in that mindset constantly and just like her constantly repeating this kind of stuff. And so in the first book, I really loved Elias' character a lot more. So when I picked this book up, I listened to the audiobook for this, and what the hell is this sequel? Sabaa Tahir. What is this? Not a lot happens in this book, honestly. And if Leia's perspective got a lot better, where she wasn't so like insistent in this type of stuff, I felt that Elias' POV started becoming really repetitive with this whole I don't want to hurt people, I don't want to hurt people, I don't want to hurt people point of view. So, and also I think that I didn't want to go into spoilers just yet. So I think I'm gonna hold off a little bit on that. But basically my favorite character through this book was Ellen. She's the most interesting character. I don't care what you say. She is so complex. It is so much fun to see the perspective of someone that's not on the good side, but is not objectively bad either. She is so interesting. She's so complex. I love seeing her point of view. And she's the only thing that like really saved this book for me, because if we didn't get to see her perspective, this book could have been like a 2-star read for me. What else did I like about this book? Basically everything. I liked the paranormal aspects or like supernatural aspects in the first book, in An Ember in the Ashes, but in this one, it just took a lot more space than I wanted it to. I wish we could have seen a more human Empire versus good guys story instead of all this supernatural nonsense. I didn't like that, and so now I think I'll definitely be getting into the spoiler section. I'm gonna put a spoiler thing right here so you know when I'm done talking, but let's get into it. So, what the hell? What the hell? What were like Leia's sudden supernatural powers? I've never seen something so plot convenient as Leia suddenly being able to go invisible. And I get it that it was because that Efreid touched her, and so she gained a little bit of his powers, but it was just so too convenient for the plot. She was just like, one time, she was just running away from the marshal, and she was like, oh damn, I wish I was invincible. And then she was. Like, that's it? That's it? And yeah, like, throughout the book, anytime that she needed to hide, she was just saying, God damn, I really wish I was invisible right now. And then she just would be. No, I didn't like that. And then the whole thing with Keenan. Did anybody else find that super creepy? I mean, I didn't like the whole plot twist that he was the Nightbringer all along. But the fact that they made love didn't bother anyone. He is a millennial creature. She's like 12. No, I'm kidding. But she's like, I don't know, 17, probably. Didn't that creep anybody else out? Like that she lost her virginity to a millennial demon? But I really didn't like that. And then the final supernatural thing that I'm going to talk about is Elias. I love that whole I'm poisoned and I'm going to die thing because I'm so dramatic. So I love when dramatic shit like that happens. But the whole waiting place, it really didn't do it for me. It really didn't do it for me. And okay, now I'm done talking about the spoilers. I'm just gonna say that I am still excited about continuing the series. I have only 2 books left, so I am excited about getting to them, but I don't know. I don't think that this was a good sequel, and I gave it 3 stars. Moving on to the 4th book that I read this month, I read Percy Jackson and the Lightning Teeth by Rick Riordan. I had been looking forward to starting this series for a long time now, and so I was really excited reading this first book, and you know what? It was really fun. I gave it 4 stars. It wasn't mind-blowing, if I'm being totally honest. I loved Percy Jackson as a character. Like, I wanted to adopt him. Like, he's the cutest thing. But I also thought that maybe it was just because I was such a dumb bitch when I was 12. But I thought he was a little bit too mature. You know, I know the whole point is for this to be a middle grade, but I wish they were a little bit older in the first book. Because You know what? I think that was a little bit too much for literal 12-year-olds, like everything that they did throughout this book. But other than that, it was really fun. I love Percy, I love Annabelle, and I'm just really excited to continue on with the series. I don't have a lot of thoughts on this. It was just fun. It was just a fun middle grade fantasy. So I'm really looking forward to continuing the series. The fifth book that I read in January was actually a novella, and that is The Deep by River Solomon. This was amazing. This was really great. Basically, it follows a story of a sort of underwater society where the creatures are pretty much the descendants of African pregnant slaves thrown overboard from ships, and so they become this sort of sirens, I would say. Obviously, because of this horrific and traumatic origin to their species, they pick a historian in each generation, and so this one historian in the society collects those memories and carries them themselves, only them, so that the rest of the society can be free of those traumas. It was a beautiful metaphor for intergenerational trauma, and we follow our current historian, which is Yetu, as she really struggles with carrying all of these horrific traumas and all this burden on her for her society. It was a beautiful read. The writing in this is just so lyrical. It flows really nicely, and I really recommend the audiobook because it feels like a performance of this great conceptual piece. And I really do recommend the audiobook over the actual reading experience because it really adds a lot to the story, and it was beautiful. I had never read from its author before, but now I'm really excited to explore their backlist because it really impressed me, and I definitely recommend that you give it a try. And the last book that I read in January is also one that I have a lot of thoughts on, and that is Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. This was probably the 2020 new release that I was most excited to read, and I'm not going to say that I was disappointed by it. I really wasn't, but I gave it 4 stars, which is still pretty great. I still really enjoyed it. There were just some aspects to it that I wish were done differently, and I'm going to start with those because there are not a lot. So I'm going to start with few negatives that I have before actually diving into what I really loved about the story. Wait, let me actually start with the actual synopsis so you guys are on the same page as me before I actually start saying what I didn't like. So, Legendborn, it's about our main character, Bree. She's a 16-year-old whose mother just recently died, and so she had already set out that she was going to do this residential program at a university called Chapel Hills, where, you know, it's for bright high schoolers to try out new classes and stuff. And so she had already set out that she was going to do that, and after her mother dies, she decides to really do it and step away from her home life, you know, just experience something new and kind of bury that grief and trauma. And so there, on her first night on campus, she witnesses a magical attack of sorts, and someone tries to have her memory wiped, but it doesn't work. So what Bree soon discovers that there's this whole secret society of the Legendborn, which are basically people with magical abilities, and that is very much tied to Arthurian legends, and, you know, the Knights of the Round Table and all of that. So basically, just Bree starts learning more about this and trying to infiltrate this magic society because she senses that there is a connection between these people and her mother's death. Now that that's out of the way, I'm gonna start with the main thing. I wish Bree was older. I'm gonna say it. I wish that Bree was actually going to university at maybe like 18 or something, because I think that 16 is a little bit too young for what transpired in this book. And I'm not talking about like sexual stuff or anything, but I don't know, I just wish that she was a little bit older. Don't ask me why, just I wish. It is something that's so random, but yeah, I wish that she was a little bit older. Other than that, the whole Arthurian legends and how it all worked, I didn't really get it. Listen, this is not in the book because I have like 3 brain cells left. I am a dumbass bitch. So this is really not on Tracy Deonn on the book itself. But oh my god, I had such trouble like adjusting to this magic system and like all these people, their pages and mages and squires and scions, and it was just, and all the descendants and all the bloodlines. I'm too dumb for that. So it really took me a little bit to adjust to this magic system. And so that's another thing that I wish was, I mean, I'm not gonna say simplified because it's like, obviously these author had a lot of work coming up with this and actually pulling inspiration from the Arthurian legend themselves, but I don't know, I didn't know about a lot about that previously, and so just coming into this book and having it all just there was a little bit too much for my dumb brain. Other than that, the romance. Listen, this is a 500-page book, okay? I wish that Tracy Deonn had taken a little more time building this. I don't know why everything in the book had to transpire so fast. Like, we could have been giving a few weeks, like few months for everything to happen, especially the romance, because it's not that I wasn't rooting for them. I liked the love interest as a character. I did. I rooted for them. I shipped them. Even though that I'm not sure how old he is. If somebody knows how old he is, maybe I just missed it throughout the book. Do let me know. But their romance was just way too fast. Literally, like, Monday, they met. Friday, they kissed. And I'm just like, 5 days. 5 days. And they were just like, I trust you with my whole life. I'm gonna help you find out what happened to your mother. Like, we are gonna be bonded for life. And I'm just like, it's a little too fast, ain't it? For a first love, you know, like Bree is 16. Maybe it's a little too fast, you know? I wish that we had it and it wasn't that it wasn't believable. Like, I rooted for them, they had chemistry, but you know, it was too fast. Let's just say it was too freaking fast. And so basically those are all the things that I didn't really like. Just those like 3 things, so it's not a lot. I still enjoyed a lot of the book. And so going into what I loved, I liked the plot direction. The ending was chef's kiss. It was amazing. I liked most of the characters, the big reveals. It was just all great. I love the way that we dealt with Bree's trauma and Bree's grief, and I love especially the intergenerational trauma, like also the metaphors that were given to this. I love exploring Bree's past generations. I love exploring her bloodline and how it all connected in the end to this other plot that we had going on. I loved the origin of Bree's magical abilities. I loved how it all tied to her past generations and how it all tied through this line of female power and how much it influenced her still. Like, I love the mentions that our past generations really do still have a big influence on the present and who we are, and all that we are, we also owe it to them, the ones that came before us. So I thought that all of that was really beautiful. Is anything I'm saying making sense? Because I feel like it's not. I feel like I'm gonna be editing this and I'm just like, you shit talked for 7 minutes straight. So if this is not making sense to a lot of people, I'm sorry. I just finished this book like 2 days ago or something. And so it's really fresh in my mind, and I feel like it's not, my thoughts are not organized at all, if they are ever organized, really. But I really am excited to continue on. Like, I can't wait till the second book comes out and just to see where Bree's story is going, because it left on a really interesting and like explosive ending. So I'm really excited. Like, I'm really looking forward to the rest of the series, and just read this book. I still really highly recommend it, especially if you have more brain cells than me, which you probably do. And so I think I'll really enjoy it. Okay, so those are the 6 books that I read in January. It was a great start to this new year. And let me know what was your favorite read of January. I know that I rambled on a little bit about some of these books, but I actually had a lot of thoughts on them, which I usually don't, but this time I really did. So I'm sorry that you had to see all of this. But yeah, I'm really excited to see what February brings, and I hope that you all have a great reading month. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for my bookish content, and I'll see you in my next video. I hope you have a nice day, and always remember that life is worth reading.